Welcome to the series where my husband renames popular romance tropes.
Hey, Fancy. Kind of learn how to type. Yes. Hey, Jenny. How are you today? I will be reading Forever Lost and Found by T.N. Nova. It is a shifter book. So I'm doing this both on TikTok and on YouTube. I know, Vincy, I love shifters. Love, love, love shifters. Oh, Vincy, did you see my new haircut? Ta-da! Looks like I got a mullet now. Okay. Hey, Ori. Is the author going to be here tonight? And because I'm not familiar with this author, what pronouns am I using? Hey, Terry. I believe you are my author, are you not? Would that be the TN? Hey, Miss Shirley, how are you? TikTok, I am just giving everybody time to get on. I will be start reading here in about another 3 or 4 minutes. Terry, you doing all right tonight? If you need to, excuse someone. If you need to, if you have TikTok, I'm also going live on TikTok. So you're welcome to follow me over there. Sometimes YouTube likes to drag a little bit when I'm first recording. So so if anybody has any problems following me on YouTube, you're welcome to go over to my TikTok and watch it from there. So TikTok, I am getting ready to start reading from Forever Lost and Found. It's the book one in the Forever series by T.N. Nova. And Terry, I know all about some long nights. Not what I want to do. Over here. Miss Shirley has jumped to the new wave of things and doing TikTok, y'all. TikTok, if it goes blank all of a sudden, that probably means I got my live taken down. It has happened. Alrighty, we're about ready to get started. Okay. So, chapter 1, and glasses. I need glasses. Ah, that's better. Okay, chapter 1. What the actual fuck? Aiden Shava's quick footsteps carried him through Cora and Jameson's living room. Aiden's father regarded him with disgust. A smug sneer marred the man's face. The same look appeared on Jameson's face, regardless of when he dealt with his son. Okay, I'm trying to get my character straight because I am blind reading this. This is not. I have not. All right. Jameson is his father, and Aiden is the main character. Okay. Jameson could rot in hell for all Aiden cared. The man standing before him hadn't been his father for quite some time now. No father would have treated their son the way Jameson treated Aiden, regardless of caring for him as a child. Jameson disowned the man, disowned the young man years ago. He would have tossed him out of the house if he hadn't had thought it would ruin his precious reputation as a lawyer. Much to his parents' dismay, he came out to them when he was 16. Unable to hide his sexual orientation from them any longer, the young man had finally mustered the courage to sit his parents down. His heart broke sorry, somebody was trying to hone in on my TikTok here. Much of his parents' dismay, he came out to them when he was 16. Unable to hide his sexual orientation from them any longer, the young man had finally mustered the courage to sit his parents down. His heart broke when they turned their backs on him. Discarded by those who claimed to have loved him, he was a lost boy in his own home. He was accepted by those. Oh, that's what's making all that noise. Got two vehicles. One of them broke down over here across the road, and that's what was making all the racket. Aiden would never be good enough for the two of them. He would be a renowned brain surgeon, win the Nobel Prize, and be an astronaut. It still wouldn't be good enough. Nothing mattered to Cora and Jameson save the fact that their only son was gay. He had ruined their hopes and aspirations of having the perfect heterosexual son. Cora had been heartbroken. Her dull gray eyes lost the loving sparkle when she looked at her son. Her world crumbled the moment she realized he would never give her the biological grandkids she had always hoped for. It was a dream Aiden could never fulfill. It went against the very nature of who he was. Cora made damn sure she reminded him of his shortcomings repeatedly. He had hoped for more support from Cora. It hadn't come on his 16th birthday. Days, weeks, and months followed. Aiden craved the love that his mother had once shown him. He did everything he could to show her he was the same person he had always been. Eventually, he resigned himself to the fact that it would never come. Furthermore, he dreamed of becoming a well known musician. For as long as he could remember, he'd wanted to make a living singing. He had worked hard, saved his money, and paid for his own voice lessons as well as musical instruments, a goal that he always had, one that disappointed his parents almost as much as the fact that he was attracted to men. Stopping short, he stood inches away from his father. How fucking dare you get me evicted from my apartment? I get that you hate me. Seems everyone you know has figured that out. But this is overboard. His gaze flashed with animosity. I want answers. You used your position in the community to pull this shit. Why? Jameson crossed his arms over his broad chest. Hate is such a strong emotion, Aiden. You can't hold ill feelings towards someone you don't care about, Jameson said without emotion, indifference shone in the older man's eyes. Years of trying to win his parents' approval amounted to nothing. None of the time he had spent trying to be the perfect son and do everything to make them proud mattered. Jameson had written him off without so much as a second thought. He was nothing more than a nuisance to his father, a piece of low-life scum under Jameson's shoe. I only want to know why you did this. Where am I supposed to go now? Aiden's voice cracked. The anger that once rushed through his veins, turning him cold, was still there. Yet, now it was mixed with sadness. Anxiety made it hard for him to breathe. Why don't you go play with your little boyfriends, Aiden? I'm sure they'll take you in. That was his mother, sorry. Why don't you go play with your little boyfriends, Aiden? I'm sure they will take you in. His mother spoke sharply. Cora's words stung. Every retort his father had ever spoken paled in comparison to what she had inflicted upon him. Those two sentences hit like a battering ram to his chest. He fought to take his next breath. He stared dumbfounded. Aiden couldn't believe what his mother just said. Without a doubt, her sharpness had cut like a knife. Cora had been a huge part of his life since he was born. She had always been by his side, encouraging him. She was the perfect mother. If anything, she was the polar opposite of Jameson when it came to the parenting skills. How could he have known she would turn her back on him the moment he didn't meet her expectations? Aiden looked into his mother's eyes. Everything he thought he knew of her was a sham. Cora had an image that she portrayed to the world. Someone who would never be caught dead turning her back on her own son. He silently wondered how she was going to keep up the act now that they had removed him from their lives. I don't have any boyfriends. Hell, Mom, I don't even have one boyfriend. You make it sound like I'm a slut. I haven't dated anyone in a year. You and Father have made sure no one would come near me. His words caused Cora to wince painfully. This is simply a phase that you're going through. What about that sweet young lady you work with? Her name is Reese Bauer, right? She seems like a nice person. Cora looked hopeful as she spoke about Aiden's friend. Aiden rolled his eyes and gave an exasperated sigh. His mother had mentioned Reese a couple of times over the years. Each occurrence elicited the same response from him. He'd given up trying to explain to Cora that there was nothing between he and Reese. If she hadn't gotten it by now, she never would. Or it was the fact that Cora couldn't accept, even now, that her only son was gay. Mother, I've told you enough times. Neither Reese nor I have that sort of attraction toward each other. We're friends who work in the same department. That's all there is and ever will be between us. Aiden said. His frustration rose. He fought against clenching his fists together. The last thing he wanted to do was continue repeating himself. This fight had gotten old months ago. When Aiden had come out to his friend that he was gay, Reese had smiled at him knowingly. The admission that she'd already known shouldn't have come as any shock to him in the least. She had already told him that she preferred males that she had already told him that she preferred males but occasionally enjoyed being with a female. Aiden had told his parents of Reese's sexuality. While Jameson and Cora had met Reese a few times and knew that he worked with her, he managed to keep preferences in partners his little secret. Aiden was aware that his father would have done everything in his powers to subject Reese to as many hardships as he could if he knew she was anything other than heterosexual. At the same time, Cora would continue to push the subject of him and Reese being together if they thought she was straight. Looking between his parents, he couldn't figure out how they had climbed as far up the social ladder as they had. The last thing he wanted for his friend to end up having was for his friend to have end up having issues. Jameson was a well-known lawyer and a homophobic prick. He had the pull to do whatever it took to get his way. A fact that was shown all too clearly today when Aiden was thrown out of his apartment. When with Aiden and Reese being friends, he would put it past his father to try and use Reese against him in some way. In fact, Aiden wouldn't be surprised if his father tried to get Reese fired from her job, or worse, have his friend stalk and hurt her in some way. It happened before. When he was 16, his best friend at the time, William Sheffield, came out as gay as well. He hadn't thought that it would have been a problem. Aiden had told Bill that everything would work out for the best. At the same time, he hadn't counted on his father being such an asshole. When Jameson found out not only he but also his friend was homosexual, he went to Bill's parents' home. He spun lies of how Aiden had corrupted Bill and forced him to have sex with him. Not long afterward, Bill and his family moved out of state. Months later, Aiden got one last letter from his friend saying he was trying to convince his parents of the truth about him. He never made sure to tell. He even made sure to tell his parents that he and Aiden never had sex, not that they believed him. That was the last he heard from his childhood friend. Aiden had tried desperately to live up to his parents' expectations. He attempted to be the good son they wanted him to be. He thought for years that there was something wrong with him. Looking back on it now, while watching his parents, he couldn't imagine why he'd tried for so long to garner approval. Fuck, Mom. Reese knows that I'm gay and accepts it. I don't understand why you and Father can't do the same for me as well. Aren't that why parents Aren't that what parents are supposed to do? Accept and support their children no matter what? Aiden had never spoken to his mother the way he was now. Cursing was a no-go. Raising his voice had never happened either. But he was on edge. They had pushed him too far this time. He had come too far to backpedal. Not that he wanted to. He was not going to hold himself back. There was nothing more to lose. His parents made sure of that. They hadn't even given him any real answers to his questions. Well, other than the fact that they were homophobic dickwads who didn't care about anyone but themselves. Don't speak to Cora in that tone of voice, Aiden's father said curtly. Jameson had spoken to a bum on the street with more compassion than he was showing his own flesh and blood. There would have been more respect shown to the homeless. Yet, that's all it would have been, just a show for the world. Indifference turned to disgust in his father's eyes. Aiden had witnessed the change frequently. It was commonplace at this point. He almost wished he wouldn't have expected anything to be different. Can't handle the truth, Father? Or are you upset that my morals are higher than yours? Unlike some people in this house, I don't screw everyone who crosses my path and flashes me a smile. Aiden gave his father a pointed look. It was common knowledge that Jameson had been having an affair with his personal assistant the last 2 years. Not that it seemed to bother Cora any. In fact, she didn't bat an eye at the statement. Jameson held up his hand to silence Aiden. You are a smart young man, Aiden. You could have been anything you wanted instead of just a paramedic or a wannabe musician. You aren't going to amount to anything. You're a waste of space. His lip curled up in revulsion as he spoke. Aiden tried to say something. anything to stop the stream of insults from his father. Yet Jameson didn't give him a chance to utter a word, let alone a full thought. No wonder you can't figure out why you were no, no wonder you can't figure out why you were evicted. You can't even use the intelligence you have to realize being gay is an abomination. Jameson sighed ruefully. You didn't get evicted because of your sexuality. It was because your rent check bounced. Failure to pay your rent leads to being removed from your residence. I would have thought you would have figured that out by now, Jameson said indignantly. Aiden went slack-jawed. Words that formed in thoughts refused to be spoken. He had never been late on his rent, much less any other payment that he owed. Even though he had a bank account, he'd never even written a check to his landlord. The first of every month since he moved into the apartment, Aiden had dropped off a money order for the exact amount and received a receipt in return. Unfortunately, when he was evicted earlier in the day, the legal documents had been drawn up, presented to the judge, and were now officially binding. Aiden couldn't fight this, even with his proof that he had paid. Jameson had judges and the legal system in his back pocket. Running his long, slender fingers through his shoulder length onyx colored hair, Aiden looked between his parents. The day had started off so well. Spending the morning getting his hair trimmed, meeting Reese for lunch, and browsing a few music stores had been exactly what he needed to relax. A feeling that hadn't carried over when he'd returned home to the eviction notice taped to his front door. Today is my only day off for the next week. I've got 5 12-hour shifts coming up. What am I supposed to do? Long shifts as a paramedic to pay his bills left him little time to hunt for a new place to stay. Aiden's gaze shifted from the cream-colored carpet to his parents' eyes. His words fell on deaf ears. A nonchalant shrug spoke clearly that Jameson didn't care. Not that he really expected anything more than the reaction he got. Aiden watched his mother turn and walk quickly out of the room. With that, the discussion with her ended. He had hoped she would have given him a chance, that there was some way his parents would have reconsidered the situation. Rid of that pillow. Oh, thank you, Vincy. I forget to tell everybody that. Okay, let's see. Miss Shirley, you doing all right over there? Um, Today's my only, let's see. Long shifts as a paramedic to pay bills left little time to hunt for a new place. A nonchalant shrug spoke clearly that Jameson didn't care, not that he really expected anything more than the reaction he got. Aiden watched his mother turn and walk quickly out of the room. With that, the discussion with her ended. He hoped she would have given him a chance, that there was some way his parents would have reconsidered the situation. Any amount of hope he had was squashed by the moment Jameson spoke again. Don't step foot near us again, Aiden. You are not welcome in this home. We don't want to speak to you again, Jameson stated coldly. But Aiden started to say he shouldn't have been shocked by the events he was. Maybe it was more frustration than shock that a parent could act that way toward their child. He had heard of others being treated badly by their parental units, and it never ceased to annoy him when it happened. Don't force me to take out a restraining order against you. You'll be arrested and thrown in jail. Leave now. Jameson's cold stare silenced any further words that Aiden might have wanted to speak. All he wanted was to find his place in the world, a place where he belonged and with people who were like him. He silently turned on his heel. With his back to Cora and Jameson, he squared his shoulders. He marched solidly out of his parents' home. Sliding into the driver's seat of his purple Mustang, Aiden looked at the closed front door of the house he once called home. The people he once called family, they had cut him off completely. He still cared for his parents. That would never change. What he hated was their bigotry, closed-minded ideas, and pure disregard for anything that went against their antiquated viewpoints. Jameson had pulled this in an attempt to crush him. Aiden was quite aware of his father's tricks. They may have attempted to break him down, but he wouldn't let his parents conquer him. He, his will to live was strong. He would rise above this. While he cared about Jameson and Cora, he wanted nothing more to do with his parents. In that moment, he was so angry that if he never saw them again, he would be fine with it. If they could dispose of him so easily, why couldn't he do the same thing in return? But that wasn't as easy to do as he hoped. His parents' toxicity caused scars within him that would take time to heal. Aiden knew it was going to take time to recover from all of it. The pain that Jameson and Cora inflicted on him would need work on his part to get over. I'll show you, he vowed. One day I'll achieve every dream I have for my future. I don't need you. Aiden wouldn't allow their small-minded bigotry to stop him from following his dreams. He was better than that. It was time for him to remember that. Starting the car, Aiden pulled out of the driveway and headed down the street toward his apartment. He was tired. All he wanted was to crawl under the sheets and get a good night's sleep. Unfortunately, he had more pressing issues. He didn't want to move out of his apartment, but he had no choice in the matter. He needed to pack his belongings and figure out what to do now. Other than Reese, Aiden had never allowed anyone to get close enough to form an attachment of any kind. Even with her, it was simply a friendship. Glancing at his cell, he thought about calling her. She would have some ideas on places to stay. It was late, though. Reese was probably already in bed. He opted to talk to her tomorrow at work. Everything was still too fresh in his mind. He wouldn't make much sense anyway. Chapter 2. Okay, give me just a second. Let me see. Whew, these male voices. I got them coming out everywhere. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to flow with it. I'm bored. Darius leaned into the couch, his right ankle crossed over his left knee. A wolfish smile tugged up on one corner of his lips. Hooking his elbows over the back, his ebony eyes sparkled with mischief. When aren't you bored? Orion Rossi teased. Let's go find some entertainment. Darius wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. A collective chuckle erupted to fill the room. None of his family needed him to say what entertainment he was wanting. The innuendo lurked behind Darius's eyes. Darius had quite a bit of pent-up energy. Even though he was feeling playful, there was an underlying sense of anxiety with him. Something nagged at the back of his mind like something unexpected was going to happen. Darius wasn't sure what it was, but his gut instinct was stuck in overdrive. His wolf paced below the surface. Darius strained to keep his wolf at bay. He didn't want to shift inside the house anyway, but especially not tonight. Reese scrunched his nose playfully. His gaze went to Darius, and a sly grin tugged at the corners of his mouth. Are you sure you want us intruding on your time? You may find some hottie to enjoy spending a few hours with. His brilliant green eyes sparkled impishly. Mischief filled his voice while he danced around the room. May, Orion called him across the room. His deep laughter rang out. Darius always has his guys throwing themselves at him. I'm surprised none of them have pulled him into their wicked web and tied him down. Quit being such a pixie, Reese. I can already hear you saying, it's my turn to be naughty, Darius said, attempting to deflect the conversation away from himself. If you're lucky, you'll find some sweet girl shift into your female persona and have some fun that way tonight. Oh, it sounds like I need to change the voices of Orion and Reese. I think I'll do that. Okay, so the light-hearted banter between them filled the room somehow. Someone will eventually make an honest man out of you, Orion teased. Yeah, right. Darius is never going to be romantic with anyone, Reese scoffed. Getting teased by the group was normal. Darius was used to that. What was different was the look that passed behind Orion's eyes, one that his friend replaced quickly with a glint of humor. Tilting his head to the side, Darius wondered what was going on. Orion always had a strange way of knowing things that were going to happen before they transpired. He didn't want to know what the Nephilim was thinking. Yeah, I'm going to be settling down right now. Find me a wonderful man, one who will sweep me off my feet. He'll make my life complete in a way I could never have imagined. Darius snorted. Is that snark I hear in your voice? Orion asked. He flashed Darius a cheeky grin. No, I would never be snarky, Darius drawled. Speaking of getting tied down, I thought you, of all people, knew I liked to be the one doing the tying instead of the one being tied down. Darius' lips twitched up in a smile. Both Darius and Orion were dominants. Neither would submit to be a switch. It wasn't what they enjoyed. Furthermore, they both had different kinks that they enjoyed. They couldn't give the other what they needed. Oh Lord, now I got a fourth one in here. Boy, you're more likely to get hit by an oncoming car than letting someone sweep you off your feet, Maximus Reed chortled. Oh, and here's Xander. Um, a bolt of lightning is more apt to hit Orion when he's flying than love finding its way into your life, Darius, Xander Reed said with a huff. Why would I want to give all this up? I don't want to grow up and fall in love. We all know it causes heartache. Someone eventually gets hurt. Exceptions are set too high and promises are made only to be broken again. Love is a pipe dream, he shrugged. Darius grew bored with the conversation. Furthermore, he didn't want to discuss falling in love. He was proof that even the innocent were not safe from the tragedy that they love. Tragedy that they brought. That love brought. There we go. My eyes keep crossing, y'all. I apologize. I'm happy right now where I am. Thank you very much. Now, can we go out? That's if the two of you are finished shoveling all that meat into your maws. Darius snorted. Darius understood that his friends were teasing him. He didn't berate them for it. Normally, it would have been fine. Tonight, though, the conversation had triggered an anxiety attack. He didn't know where the attack came from. He'd never had one before. Hell, he didn't know of any other of his kind who had them either. At least as far as he knew, anyway. At 25, Darius had never known his parents. They had abandoned him at birth, left on the streets of Santa Monica at such a tender age. He counted himself lucky that the former head of their little family had graciously taken him under his wing. Donovan Prince wasn't so much a father figure to Darius, but more like the fun uncle who had given him quite a bit of freedom while guiding him. Through Donovan, Darius learned he was the sole offspring of the union between a man and a woman who were 25 when they had met. Darius's parents had certain obligations due to being the eldest children of alpha mates in their packs that were locked in a bitter fight for rights over adjoining land. Sounds like Romeo and Juliet. Darius' mother, Jude Cabot, was from a pack of Asian wolves. Their culture had been quite strict. Traditions dictated every part of their lives. Most would have thought this was archaic, something that only happened in the past. They would have been right if they hadn't taken into consideration her parents were solidified in the old ways of their Asian heritage. While the ancient ritual was antiquated by many centuries, the pack had kept tradition alive and well. Jude had certain expectations thrust upon her by her own parents. She was betrothed to a werewolf from a different pack. It was a union of convenience, a treaty between the two packs to gain land for Jude's pack. Jude was sent away for the duration of her pregnancy, only allowed to come back after Darius was born. She and her mate were wed during the spring of the following year. Darius's father, Samuel Rain, was destined to be mated with a female of his own pack. As such, the love he had for Jude was forbidden. He became wed to the woman months after Jude was sent away. Unaccepted and an outcast, Darius was left on the streets just hours after his birth. Found by Donovan, he was raised as a lost boy to take over the vagabond family. Pulling himself from his thoughts of the past, Darius stopped in front of the fireplace. He rested his hand on the mantel, taking a deep breath and releasing it slowly. He got his wolf under control. Turning around gracefully, a wicked smile drew up the corners of his lips. His eyes sparkled with delight while taking in each of his friends. Each of them had a story to tell that was as unique as they were. As different as they were, there were a few things they had in common. The main one was that their biological families never accepted them. The small family of five were proof that the saying blood is thicker than water was wrong. Maximus and Xander were like Darius in the fact that they were werewolves born to parents of rival packs. There was no way their parents could have been together. The one difference was that their parents were killed shortly after their birth. While their mother's pack had taken care of Maximus and Xander until they were teens, the twins were still outcasts. Due to them being gay, they were unaccepted and forced to live on the outskirts of the pack. We've lost him. Let's see if I can get back to that voice. We've lost him again. We've lost him again. All right, we've lost Max. Sorry, we've lost Max, Xander whispered quietly to his brother. You think he's okay? We've lost him, Max. You think he's okay? Who knows? Maximus shrugged. He's never done this before. The spring heat must be fucking with his head this year. Darius barely heard the comments or the teasing by the twins. Reese was a pixie. When he turned 16, he left his homeland. In the beginning, none of them had known why Reese had attached himself to them. He needed a place to stay and was fun. Reese slipped into their group, grew on them, and they all adored his ways. The only hints that were given was that his parents couldn't accept Reese's lifestyle. Darius and the others never questioned or pressed for more information. The pixie was part of their lives, and that was all that mattered. He's daydreaming about me. You all know he wants my sexy ass. I'm trying to get these voices down right as I'm learning the characters as I go. So sorry if this is kind of. What is for supper? What was for supper? I had homemade tacos or taco salad, whatever. We don't use taco shells, we use chips. So taco salad, I guess. You think everyone wants you, Reese. You're insatiable, more like he's wondering how the hell any of us put up with you, Orion said lightheartedly. Trying to set this up to where I don't have to. Oh, that ain't gonna work. Sorry, y'all. There we go. Maybe that works. Orion's comment pulled Darius' thoughts toward the dark haired man. He was graceful with a commanding presence, yet there was something softer within him for those he showed that side to. He was the only one who had parents of different races. Orion was a Nephilim, the son of a male angel and a female human, unable to live in the angelic plane, but unable to fully fit in the human world. Long, fluid steps carried Darius through the living room, snatching his black leather jacket from the coat rack by the front door. He caught a whiff of Orion's scent. With a glance over his shoulder, he was not surprised that the man was following close behind. Donning his jacket, he smirked. He and Orion stepped out into the cool night air, followed by Reese and the twins. Talking about having your very own guardian angel. Hello. So, where are we going? Orion's brow popped up questioningly. He waited for Darius to lock up the house. A nonchalant shrug was given in response. A sparkle lit behind Darius's gaze. It spoke louder than his words did in that moment. Orion raised a hand slowly. Don't Tell me, Darius, we're going to the hub. Groans escaped from Maximus and Xander. Darius is in one of his moods, Maximus chimed in, nudging Xander. He smirked playfully. This is going to be a long night. The hub was by far the best gay club in Santa Monica. The club catered to those who enjoyed the kinkier side of life. Dominants and submissives went there to relax. Daddies and littles, along with masters, slaves, and a wide variety of other people graced the establishment. Any kink that could be thought had been seen at the hub. More so, it was a safe place for supernaturals from all walks of life. Can't, can't we go somewhere else tonight? Reese pursed his lips in a soft pout. The guys haven't been any fun there lately. On the rare occasions that a female is there, she's someone I wouldn't be interested in. Reese was a pixie by every extent of what it meant. He enjoyed teasing and pranks, full of laughter and having fun. He needed the freedom of being allowed to have fun, enough fun to keep him happy. Bring in too much seriousness, and he became sullen. Darius gave him a quick kiss on the forehead. Go with me tonight to the hub, and you can choose the place next time. Darius scrunched down a bit to look him in the eyes, the smile still plastered on his face. He and his wolf could feel Reese's wheel bending. Seconds passed and turned into a half minute, which turned into a full minute. Reese and Darius continued to look at each other quietly. Finally, the pout that marred the corners of Reese's full lips changed into a sparkly smile. Okay, we'll go, but you owe me. Reese poked him in the stomach lightly before they all stepped off the porch and into the night. Chapter 3. Chicken tacos are the best. Now I'm wanting something. No, these are just beef tacos. Miss Shirley had a grilled cheese. Oh, I lost her over there. Okay. And chicken and veggies. That sounds like Nina's favorite meal. Chicken and veggies. Oh, I love Mexican. I love it, love it, love it. Chapter 3. Laughter circled around them. Darius led the pack with Orion, matching his long strides. Reese situated himself between Maximus and Xander, his arms hooked through theirs. They walked down the street together without seemingly having a care in the world. With few neighbors to pry into their business, they could come and go without any problems. The wooded area that led behind their home held an added advantage for Darius, Maximus, and Xander. With each square footage for their wolves to run free, wildlife was also prominent for them to hunt in their other forms. The hub, located on the Santa Monica Pier, wasn't that far away from their home. They had walked the route many times, a short jaunt from home to the club district, one they could make easily in little time given their stamina and their faster than human speed. Darius welcomed the walk more than he normally would. What he had said earlier was true. He was bored. He was antsy as well. Spring was approaching. The weather had taken a turn for the better. Days were warmer, nights were milder. The change in seasons had werewolf sex drives going in overload. Not that there weren't sexual creatures already. Werewolves craved touch. Closeness was ingrained in them. A rogue wolf without a pack ended up losing his mind. That was a natural part of life. Darius had felt the changes within him since he hit puberty. Knowing that spring was rapidly approaching, he was always prepared. Tonight was different than previous years. Darius was feeling a new level of anxiety within him. His wolf had been feeling it as well. He was more restless. The wolf fidgeted and paced under the surface. Darius's muscles tensed. His thoughts drifted. Confusion set in. Darius growled low. Feeling Orion's eyes on him, he took a deep breath, then released it. Shooting the blonde next to him a sideways look, Darius arched a brow. No reason to be glowering at me, Orion. We're going to have a blast tonight. He feigned innocent in hopes that the Nelphium would buy the facade. Orion shrugged. Whatever you say, Wolfie. Just do us a favor and get that sexy ass of yours laid tonight. You're too damn tense. Darius clenched. Darius clenched his fist. He bared his teeth at his friend before looking ahead again. Orion didn't need to be so smug. It was infuriating at times how the man knew so much. Trying to relax himself, Darius rotated his shoulders to work out the tension in his muscles. He needed to find his inner calm. Even though he couldn't put his finger on what was going on, it didn't give him any reason to take it out on his family. Sorry, Orion, Darius said quietly. I shouldn't have done that. You're right. I do need to find a cutie and have at it for an hour or four. It's that time of the year. All is forgiven, Orion said assuredly. Thankful that Orion didn't try to push the topic, Darius sighed in relief. It was as though the entire explanation was all that was needed. Spring was a unique time of the year. Wolves, like any other animal, went into heat during the season. Shifters of any kind were no different. Because of this, even the most relaxed creature became keyed up. I wonder if there's going to be anything tasty on the menu tonight. Reese smiled impishly. Perhaps a sweet redhead or a curly-haired brunette with green eyes. Picky much? Xander snorted. Male or female? Male or female? I can't get the Reed boys' voices right. Maximus chimed. Reese giggled. So, sue me, the pixie who wants some variety. He stuck his tongue out at the twins. You both are quite aware I prefer men, Reese winked. Darius barely heard the conversation between the three who were walking behind him. The laughter from the twins in response to Reese's question barely broke through the fog of his thoughts. Orion calling out his name when he stepped off the sidewalk to cross the street hadn't even fully registered through the feelings that something was off. Even the fresh air and the exercise hadn't calmed his nerves. What he did hear was the sudden screeching of tires. As soon as he looked in the direction of the sound, the brightness of the headlights blinded him moments before the car slammed into him. Careening to the pavement, Darius landed on his back. The force knocked the air out of his lungs. His head hit the ground. The world tilted on its axis. A car door slammed shut. Footsteps raced toward him. Blinking once, followed by a second one, a set of the most intense blue eyes Darius had ever seen looked into his. He couldn't break the gaze as his vision was starting to go black. Reaching up, he tried to touch the person's cheek. Darius wasn't sure if what he was seeing was an hallucination or reality. He had just been hit by a car and smacked the back of his head on the asphalt after all. Darius's fingers finally caressed the blue-eyed man's cheeks. The feel of the warm flesh sent a shiver of anticipation through him. He picked up the scent of the unknown man, masculine with a hint of sweet spices. Through the haze of his injuries, Darius knew that the man was human. He could smell it on the stranger. Whatever anxiety that filled Darius earlier washed out of him. The wolf inside him tried to get out. The beast within him wanted to get close to the man who was kneeling beside Darius. The craving of the animal was so intense that it would have forced Darius to shift in that moment if he hadn't been hurt. No, Darius cried out in his mind to his wolf. He couldn't let the human know what he was. He should have been trying to get away from the man instead of becoming calmer. Darius! Reese screamed out as he bolted toward him. He knelt next to Darius. Maximus and Xander crouched on the other side with Orion at his head. Reese attempted to draw his friend's attention toward him, yet Darius couldn't break free from the gaze of the unknown man. The world around Darius became shadowy. His vision began to fade. Dropping his hand to his side, Darius felt himself drifting. He fought a losing battle to keep his eyes open. Blinking a few times, he attempted to concentrate on what was being said. The stranger wanted to take him to the hospital. Reese and the others were arguing against it. They wouldn't allow the man to take him there. Darius knew they wouldn't. He trusted his friends with his life. The last thing Darius heard was Reese telling the man they were taking him home while the pixie lifted him into his arms. One last glance at the human and the world went dark. Darius slipped into an unconscious state, only to have those neon blue eyes follow him into a void of nothingness. All right, one more chapter, and this is it, girls. Okay. Chapter 4. Aiden's thoughts of the night played repeatedly in his mind. There was a time when he wished he could change his parents' views of him. Now he knew there was nothing he could have done to change Jameson and Cora's minds. He should have figured it would come to this, though. It was only a matter of time before they completely disowned him. Nothing he could have done would have changed that. He was now completely alone in the world. At least he had his self respect. He no longer had to hide himself, nor did he have to conform to some preconceived notion of how they imagined their son should be. He also didn't have to perform like a trained monkey, one that was trapped in the stereotypical normalcy of his parents. With the free time, Aiden could pursue other aspects of his life that he enjoyed. He had the ability to devote his life to being himself instead of the son of Jameson and Cora Shava, also known as the perfect couple everyone wanted to be. Lost in his thoughts over his night with his parents, Aiden didn't see the man dressed in black step off the sidewalk until it was too late. His foot hit the brakes, the tires squealed, his Mustang jolted to a stop. The sickening sound of a body hitting the pavement echoed in his ears. The sound of a male's voice screaming out a name washed over him, a voice that sounded vaguely familiar. Shock engulfed him. His hands grasped the steering wheel in a white-knuckled grip with the airbag deployed. Time stood still. Four people rushed to the dark-haired man's side as though in slow motion. The seconds passing felt like an eternity. His mind, once occupied with the fiasco at Jameson and Cora's house, was crowded by the catastrophe he now experienced. Aiden tried to wrap his head around what had just happened. There was no justifiable reason for the accident. It was his own fault that he had allowed his parents to distract him. If the man died, it would be on his shoulders. He should have been more careful. There had been other options. He could have called Reese. She. Ah! Blonde moment. Damn, that didn't click. Okay. What? I'm so blind. Damn. Okay. There had been other options. He could have called Reese. She would have met him someplace and driven him back to his apartment. Hell, he could have easily left his car parked at the corner convenience store. It would have been nothing to call for a lift home. Aiden could have picked his car up on the way to work the next morning. Yet he hadn't done that. He'd been careless. 2 years of saving other people's life as a paramedic, only to be here beside a man who he had hit with his own car. In a crescendo of heightened awareness, the events went from what appeared as slow motion to fast pace. Aiden became hyper aware of his surroundings, the flurry of activity outside the car contained within a bubble. Adrenaline jolted him back to reality. He carelessly let his mind focus on something other than what he needed his attention. His focus needed to be on the present and the immediate future. Turning off the engine, Aiden threw open the door and bolted from the driver's seat. His medical training kicked in. Instinctively, he took in his surroundings with a quick glance. Leaning into the car, he grabbed the medic bag he kept in the back seat. Ever the be ready for anything, I used to have a go bag that sat in my back seat for about 5 years. And I was only an EMT for 3. Oh, hey, Wild Child. I didn't know you were down there. How did I miss that? Or are you home watching it? Or where you at? There's a reason we call her Wild Child. Um, Turning off the engine, Aiden threw open the door and bolted from the driver's seat. His medical training kicked in. Instinctively, he took in his surroundings with a glance. Leaning into the car, he grabbed the medic bag he kept in the back seat. With a slam of the door, he raced to kneel next to the man who lay in front of his car. He looked into the Asian man's eyes. Aiden was lost for a moment. His hands shook. Something was hidden behind the gaze of the man. He saw a primal wildness in the mocha-colored gaze, a flash of something almost inhuman before the man's eyes closed. Opening his bag, he pulled out a penlight. "Call 911," he called out to the man kneeling beside him, the same one who had cried out the other man's name moments earlier. Aint checked the man's pupils for reactivity. When they dilated properly with the light shining into them, he gave the four who were gathered a quick glance before starting to examine the man again. "I said call an ambulance. We need to get him to a hospital." "We need to get him back home, Reese." One of the others spoke to the person kneeling beside Aiden. "A human hospital is no place for Darius. We can take care of him." Reese nodded in agreement. "I know, Orion. There's nothing that can't be I know, Orion. There's nothing that can be done there." Kneeling beside the man he hit, the blond-haired man's gaze shifted from Orion to the twins who were with them. He gazed at Aiden, who was pulling his cell out of his pocket, placing his hand on Aiden's shoulder to stop him. Reese shook his head. His brilliant green gaze connected with Aiden's blue hues. "Aiden, stop. Let us take care of this." Confusion hit hard. It had to be apparent in Aiden's face when he heard Reese speak to him. Something in the man's voice was familiar. While he couldn't place that aspect, it was Reese's eyes that gave him a clue. "What? How?" Aiden stuttered. "How do you know my name?" "I'm going to show you something, but you need to trust me," Reese whispered. "I need to get him to the hospital. He could be hurt." Aiden reiterated. "Oh, these words. You like big words too." I have an issue with big words because I can't say a lot of them. Reese. Ryan put his hand on the man's shoulder. "If you're about to give us away, you can't," his deep voice urged. "I know we promised each other we wouldn't, but I have to," Reese pleaded with Orion. "Please trust me. It's the only way." "We're not talking about the weather here," Aiden demanded. "Come on." "What if he turns us into the other humans?" The twin in the denim jacket drawled. "He could be turned into a science. We could be turned into a science experiment, or worse, killed." "He won't. I know and trust him. This is the guy I work with and talked about him the other day, Aiden. Remember?" Reese remained steadfast. "Fine," Orion sighed. "But if this goes bad," he gave Reese a pointed look as though he silently finished the sentence. Reese let his facial features shift into the female gender that he presented himself as while at work. Calming, watching Aiden, the blond man appeared as though he was ready to act quick in case the worst happened. Aiden stayed motionless. He was speechless. Feeling the squeeze of Reese's grasp on his shoulder, he watched in awe as the other man stood up. "The fuck?" Aiden cursed under his breath. "This can't be real. Reese?" "Yes, it's me, and this is very real." Reese nodded. His features returned to the masculine appearance. None of us are human. Well, except for you. I'll explain later. But please, let us get Darius back to our home because we can take care of him." "But," Aiden shook his head, "what if he's hurt or has broken bones?" "If he does, we'll deal with it at home. But sitting out here isn't going to help any," the other twin in the leather jacket insisted. "Okay, but I want explanations." "Thank you," Reese whispered. When Reese picked Darius up and headed toward the Mustang, Aiden stood to follow Reese. Opening the door to the passenger side, he granted Reese access to the inside of the Mustang. Aiden stood with the look of shock on his face. Tonight, the night can't get any more strange, he quietly muttered. I've lost my mind. This isn't happening. It can't be, he repeated more firmly. Adamant in his statement, his hands curled into fists, demanding that this was all some sort of nightmare. If he repeated it to himself more sternly, the night wouldn't have happened. He would wake up with everything being back to normal. Hope began to rise from deep within him. Reese's quiet smile and the glimmer in his eyes, which mingled with the concern for Darius, made Aiden's battle for average go into overdrive. He set his jaw in determination, again the onslaught of calm rolling off Reese. Don't discount anything, Aiden. Reese's voice was calm. His tone was soothing. Yet there was a slight humor in his silvery timbre. His eyes sparkled with the playful sincerity he had seen in Reese's eyes when he presented himself as a female while at work. Aiden shook his head. Orion, get back to the house with Maximus and Xander. I'll ride with Aiden and Darius. I trust this human. Reese's words lilted out musically moments before he slipped fluidly into the back seat of the car. In his arms, Darius still rested motionlessly. Aiden slammed the car door. For a moment, he watched Orion and the twins rush away. Now, see, I got two full-grown human men in my mind, one sitting in the other's lap in the front of this Mustang. Okay, I'm going to assume it's like a 2017-18 Mustang, that body style, and I'm still not sure there's enough room in this Mustang. I'm seriously, that's a lot of man. That's a lot of meat up there. And then you're going to put the third body behind the wheel. Damn, and I love my Mustangs. That's that. Ooh, that, Whew. Yeah, that's a lot of man. Yeah. Let's see. For a brief moment, he watched Orion and the twins rush away. The speed with which the three moved was inhuman. He needed to figure out what was going on. The mystery of those around him, coupled with the accident, left his head swimming with confusion. Norman was not on the menu for tonight. Hell, he doubted his life was ever going to be that way again. He had to come to grips with that fact. Getting behind the wheel, Aiden pushed the deployed airbag out of the way, started the engine, and took off. He'd have to call a tow truck later to take his car to the dealership and get everything fixed. Oh, yeah, let's not leave out the airbag and the cover. Damn. That's a lot of man meat up there. That is just a lot of man meat, y'all. And I need to be laid out in the back seat with my toys. All that man meat in the front seat. Damn. Following Reese's directions, Aiden drove toward what he assumed was the group's home. Ever so often, he glanced in the rearview mirror to check on the two in the back seat. Oh, how did I miss they were in the back seat? See, this book is just driving me crazy. I'm having too many blonde moments. Damn, Terry. Jeez. He was sitting coming back in the car. Let's see. Following Reese's directions, ever so often he glanced in the rearview mirror to check on the two in the back seat. Soft groans came from the dark-haired Asian man. He was staring, coming back into consciousness as the short trip took them from where the accident happened to the home Reese guided them. Still in shock about what happened, Aiden remained quiet during the drive. His mind raced. He battled with the war that was going on in his brain on whether this was real or simply a stress-induced nightmare brought on by the earlier events of the evening. Pulling into the driveway, then shutting off the engine, Aiden had decided that if it truly was a nightmare, he would have already woken up. There were more questions that needed to be answered, but his first concern was the man in the back seat with Reese. Aiden glanced in the rearview mirror. The raven-haired man was now sitting up in the seat next to Reese and looking more irritated at the situation than actually hurt. Nope, there is no more normal tonight, he mumbled to himself before getting out of the car and helping the two from the back seat. Thank God, I need alcohol. I've not even had alcohol. Oh, shut up, Vincy. That's still a lot of man in a Mustang. Damn, where am I in that car? I guess I'm in the front seat because I thought I was in the back seat. Oh, jeez, Louise. You guys are so mean. Uh, yeah. Get your ass, get the next book finished. Hurry, because I'm going to finish this book by this weekend, hopefully. Let's see, what else you guys been chit chatting about? Yes, please. Yes, we do love sequels. Oh, I've got like 4 email accounts. Fancy, you gonna make me blush. Oh, that's always good when I'm talking about sex driving kids walk in. See, and I'm not gonna lie, I've never heard of you. I don't think till you were put on my list. I apologize. My girls don't always share everything with me. Yes, I love you. I don't know why, but I do. Oh shit! There we go. My life kind of bombed tonight, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. Miss Shirley stayed on there the longest. Alrighty, so did you? I didn't see. Did you post all the pricing and stuff up there, Ori? Did you do your job? Come on, girl. Don't make me fire you again. I haven't fired you lately because I've been lazier than you, so that's probably why. But yeah, don't make me fire you. I know it's free on KU. That's how I got it. God, this thing's bright tonight. Look like I got sunburn. My hair's getting curly again. Ooh, it's getting dark. I'm gonna bleach it this time before I color it. That should be interesting. Okay, let's see what we got here. And tomorrow night. Whoop, whoop. We have Reagan, Tony, Lisa. After we came home. That's a new to me. Another new to me author. So, alrighty. So, y'all come back tomorrow night and watch me read that one and get tongue tied over big words again. Oh, I love small time authors a lot. So that's pretty much what I mean. I read mostly. I don't read all small time authors, but I do read a lot of them. Some I've never heard of and couldn't tell you again. Even if their book's good, I forget names. So sometimes I even forget books until I start reading them again. I'm like, oh, I've already read this one, so then I cause it go back to do over. Okay, all righty, y'all. I'm gonna get off from here and quit rambling. You guys have a great evening. Ken, thank you so much for letting me read this. I love it. I'm waiting on Reese, so hurry it up, okay? Yeah. Alrighty. You ladies have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Happy reading.